All right, guys. We're getting the old gas engine cranked up right now, and I am pulling up YouTube over here so that I can try to visit with you guys a little bit. It's not showing my live stream yet, so I suspect there it is. There it is. I suspect a slight bit of a delay, but see you guys trickling in. Good to see everybody tonight. Somebody would just let me know if audio sounds okay. I can see the video, but obviously I don't have any audio on. So let me make sure that I'm not going to catch any feedback either from my own. Okay, sounds good. Hey guys, I'll try to give shout outs as you guys come on board. Roosted Films, Big Mo, Liberty Life, God Cotty, I guess that's how you pronounce that. Mr. FNH and Friends FNH, Brian Marshall, Vash Matrix, Our Guard. Good to see you guys. Mel Solace. Can I make it any louder? You know what? I could probably turn my AC unit off in here. This is Louisiana. Alaskan Ballistics. Let me go try to turn my AC off and see if that helps. All right, that should do the trick. That should have eliminated a little bit of background noise there. Hey everybody. Hey Brent, how are you? Good buddy of mine from here in Lake Charles. Tyler, nice to see you. Ralph, 33 Bravo. Eric Douglas. Mel, good to see you. Gilbert, Spencer, nice to see all you guys. I have a lot of things to go over tonight. I will try not to ramble quite as much as I typically do, mainly because I really want to address a lot of you guys' comments and stuff like that, because I missed out on a lot of good stuff last week. Let's see. If you guys haven't seen it, I put a video out earlier today, I should say, and it's pretty much about a week's worth of research. It's not like I spent my life doing this, but a lot of I have a lot of my support documents here. Probably about a week of research, and you constantly hear the left tell us that we need to use common sense. You hear that a lot. It's like their way of saying that you're stupid and that they're the ones using common sense. It's implying that they're the only ones that are using common sense. Oh, the light's too bright. It seems awfully bright whenever I look at the. It's like it's definitely washing out. Let me kill one of these lights real quick. Might be a little too close to me. So the left is implying that they're the only ones using common sense because they tell us we need to use common sense. Thing about it is, when they say common sense, they never talk about what's really wrong with the children. They don't talk about bullying. They don't talk about over-medicating or medicating the kids. They don't talk about fatherless homes. And the reason why is for several reasons. They don't talk about, I guess the first one, or bullying. They don't talk about bullying. Yes, they have their own bullying agenda, but they never want to apply that bullying has anything to do with how a child might react once he leaves school and grade school and all that kind of stuff. And I think part of that has to do with most of the kids in America are going through public schools, which are government-funded schooling, which is failing most of the kids out there. They don't want to talk about fatherless homes, even though there's hard facts pointing to that. A lot of the kids being messed up or not being, I guess, going down that right path simply because it's a fatherless home. They don't want to talk about that because they promote so many things that actually encourage fatherless homes. Welfare, for instance. They push the welfare on people. It's their way of keeping people. If it makes people mad, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry, because I'm not sorry, but it keeps them as slaves. If you can keep somebody under your thumb and keep them reliant and dependent on you, then that's your way of making sure that they can never do anything on their own and they feel beholden to you and they're always going to vote for you. And oh, by the way, you get to keep your job as a senator or a representative for life because now you've enslaved somebody who feels like they have to vote for you. That's what they're doing. So they encourage programs that go against trying to prevent fatherless homes. The whole welfare system is designed to encourage you and incentivize you to not be married, to not have a mom and a dad in the home. Now, that's not the only reason why there are fatherless homes, but yes, clearly it would go against what the Democrats are trying to do if for some reason they pushed an agenda that try to get more dads in homes. And of course, the medicating side. The Democrats and Republicans, this is not a party issue, the Democrats and the Republicans make lots of money off pharmaceutical lobbyists. You know, you hear the Democrats continuously tell us how bad we are and the right and Republicans because they take money from the NRA. Do you realize how little the amount of money is? I saw somebody the other day say that someone had gotten a $33,000 payment from the NRA. Now, that's a lot of money to me and probably a lot of money to most of you guys out there. But in retrospect, it's really not. If you look at the fact that these people are getting, literally, these congresspersons are getting rich off of pharmaceutical companies. They're getting set for life. How does a person like Maxine Waters, who went into politics broke and making $174,000 a year, believe me, the cost of living in Washington, D.C. and in California, where she's at, is pretty high in both places. So that's not exactly, yeah, that's a lot of money annually. But between all the perks and everything else they get, you're still not going to become a millionaire making $174,000 a year. It just doesn't work like that. Again, she probably is spending, seriously, probably about that much just to live. Accommodations in California and Washington, D.C. So again, she didn't become a millionaire off of $174,000 a year, or whatever their salary is now. It used to be $174. It's probably $180. It's probably closer to $200 now. My point is, they're making their money somewhere. The two biggest industries in the world are pharmaceutical and oil and gas. That's where they're making all their money. Now, granted, Republicans in many cases, because of their policies, are making more on the oil and gas side. The Democrats are certainly making their money somewhere. Nancy Pelosi is another perfect example. All these folks are at or close to being millionaires once they've been in several terms in Congress. They're making a really good living off of pharmaceutical companies. That's why they don't want to talk about any of this stuff. They don't want to talk about drugs. They don't want to talk about the fact that we have, let's see here, kids 0 to 5. A lot of this is my video that I put out today. Kids that are 0 to 5, there are over 1,080,168 kids between the ages 0 and 5 that are on some type of psychiatric drug. 0 to 5. Now, I understand if your child has some kind of a mental deficiency, special needs, something of that nature, and they might be medicated. I get that. What 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, or 4-year-old who is a neurotypical child, who is a normally functioning neurotypical child, why would you ever give them medication? First of all, you're poisoning their brain that's still got years of forming to do. It's going to be forming for many years beyond that. Why would you poison it at such an early age? You don't even know this. You don't even know this kid yet. You don't even know them. If they're, a couple of years old, you don't know them. They've never spoken directly to you. But for some reason, you feel the need to medicate them. Do you not read warning labels? Do you not read small print? And I'm not trying to bash anyone out there that has medicated their kids. Because look, in a lot of cases, pediatricians and doctors are, I don't want to say pushing this on families, but a lot of people I have found, and I've seen it myself, we put too much trust in doctors. We allow a doctor, we feel like they're the be-all, end-all. And whenever they suggest something, well, we got to do it because they suggested it. You can always say no to a doctor. They are just suggesting. They don't have any legal right to tell you what you have to do. So if your doctor tells you need to put your 3-year-old on medication, just tell them no. I mean, unless your kid's bouncing off the walls and beating his head on the floor, I don't see the reason to give a 3-year-old kid a mood-altering drug. Are you kidding me? You don't even know who the kid is. You don't even know what their mood is to know if you need to alter it or not at that age. They're still developing everything, not just their body, their personality, everything. But the politicians are making some serious bank off of these drugs. So when they tell you common sense gun control, what they really mean is they're trying to get you not to talk about the things that we probably have already thought about being the most obvious. And I identify these things in my video. I identify bullying. Let me give you some really fast facts. Bullying, this blew my mind. 1 in let's see, let me get some room here. 1 in 4 kids in the United States is bullied in school. Let's see. 20% of U.S. students in grades 9 through 12, high school years, experience some form of bullying. These are the things that kind of got me. 70.4% of school staff have seen bullying, 62% witnessed bullying 2 or more times in the last month, and 41% witnessed bullying once a week or more. Now, guys, I'm not suggesting bullying is the problem by any stretch. I'm certainly not suggesting that. Again, I'm a more accountable person than that. And I think our boys, because most of them are the ones getting bullied. I know the girls are too, but most of these boys are the ones getting bullied. I expect our boys to be a little bit tougher, be able to handle some of that. And I'm going to tell you another thing that I think is part of the problem with the bullying, okay? First of all, in many cases, and part of it we'll get into, is the fatherless homes. But a lot of our boys are not being raised to be men anymore. They're being raised to be whatever they decide they want to be at some point. And I say that sarcastically. You know, I can remember growing up, and the advice you gave or you got from, in most cases, another man. In some cases, it might be your mom or somebody else or your sister or whatever. If somebody bullied you, they didn't tell you to go tattle. They told you to tell somebody, of course. But that wasn't their first thing. They didn't tell you to walk away. Just walk away. They didn't tell you any of these things that the flower childs tell you today to do. You know what they told you? And those of you that are my age or older or around my age, you know what I'm about to say. They told you to ball your fist up and punch that bully in the mouth or in the stomach or in the throat as hard as you could and stand over him if he hits the ground. But you don't run from him. Nowadays, and I don't encourage fighting in schools, but I also don't encourage running away when somebody is asking to get punched in the mouth. Nowadays, even if you got picked on and the person jumped on you and started fighting, if you fight back, in most cases, you get suspended or expelled, and in some cases, even brought to a parish or county jail. So they discourage, by going to the extreme, instead of punishing the guilty party, and I guess I get it, it's one person's word against the other, whatever. Most cases, you're going to know who's the bully. If the teachers and staff are paying attention at school, they're going to know. But they're discouraging people from fighting back and really discouraging it. So now we're not teaching our kids to fight back. So there's your bullying issue. And again, I'm explaining to you a combination of things that I feel like are messing our kids up. And the whole point of this conversation, by the way, guys, is that guns aren't the problem. The left is trying to say guns are the problem. I figured out what the problem is, just like most of you have. And I'm spelling it out for the left because they don't want to address the problem. Fatherless homes. This is another thing the left does not want to talk about because their constituents, if they're not on welfare, half of them aren't going to vote Democrat. I mean, it's just the truth. 43% of U.S. children live without their father. 90% of this is interesting to me, 90% of adolescent repeat arsonists live with only their mother. That's crazy. That's like saying almost all people who set stuff on fire don't have a dad around. And it goes on and on. It's crazy, man. A 2002 Department of Justice survey of 7,000 inmates revealed that 39% of jail inmates lived in mother-only homes. Now, that was in 2002. That number has grown substantially now because these numbers are growing and growing and growing. Obviously, if 43% of U.S. children live without their fathers, 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. Where's the other one at? This was one that really kind of scary to look at. 80%, get this, guys, 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes. 80%. That's not a drop in the bucket. That is a huge amount. The left doesn't want to talk about that. So I've got fatherless homes, and I have kids who are being bullied, which, by the way, teachers are not doing anything about either. Now, this is my really thick stack of research here. Over-medicating our kids. Unbelievable. These stats. Let me show you a chart right here. In 4 years, sales of ADHD drugs have grown by 89%. Look at this chart. Is that not a disgusting chart? That's a legitimate chart right there showing, remember we talked about drugs? Showing the drugs that these kids are ingesting into their bodies while their brains are still forming, and before we even get to know who they are. Let's see. ADHD, in a study, now get this, I'm going to tie this together, and I say this in my video if you guys hadn't seen it earlier. In a study of the years between 2003 and 2007, the years in which the policy was rolled out, the authors looked at children between ages 8 and 13. They found that among children in many low-income areas, the districts which were most targeted by this bill, I'll tell you the bill in a minute, ADHD diagnoses increased from 10% to 15.3%, a rise of 53%. The bill we're talking about is the No Child Left Behind bill. The No Child Left Behind bill was, I think it was originally written by Bill Clinton, but it was enacted by George W. Bush. And this bill pretty much incentivized schools for kids having higher test scores. Now, I've often said, and again, I say this in my video, that as long as you introduce a monetary incentive in any kind of a government agency, all you do is you encourage corruption. You encourage cooking the books. You encourage falsifying data in order to get that money, because you're dealing with bureaucrats and nobody's ever held accountable in government jobs. And you're dealing with an organization that is so big, there's no way to fact check anything. There's no way to confirm if these numbers are true or not. So any number that you're given, people just say, oh, cool, that school's doing great now. Here's your money. They don't check any of this stuff. And in many cases, what's happening is these schools, in a lot of cases, based on the numbers, when you have a 53% increase in ADHD medication immediately following the enactment of the No Child Left Behind Act, it's pretty telling what's happening is. It's not like in 2003 when the act was passed that suddenly a bunch of ADHD kids were located and identified. No, they were already there. It's just that now these organizations, these schools, now had a reason to have these kids medicated so that they were simply speed bumps at that point. That way they didn't have to work with these kids in any kind of way. They didn't have to do anything with them, didn't have to waste their time on them. And I say waste their time on them. Now they could just focus on cooking the books. You know, they let little Johnny take his test a little bit longer. And that's part of the deal. You know, in order to get a better test score, you let these kids who are struggling take, you know when you were taking an aptitude test or something like that and the buzzer rang, everybody put your pencils down right now. It's not like that now. Now that you have the No Child Left Behind Act, now they encourage you, hey man, we just want you to get a good score. We don't care if it takes you twice as long. Take your time, take the test, which is great if it worked. The problem is all these drugs that they're giving to these kids, they tested, oh gosh, where was it? I don't want to lose my spot. This is something I want to definitely talk about. They actually ran a study on kids who were taking these psychiatric drugs, and increased 53%. Talked about that. Oh well, here it is. There was a study where 4,000 children, it concluded that out of 4,000 children that a study was run, that the children who took stimulants did not do any better in schools than kids who kids who did take stimulants didn't do any better in schools than the kids who did take stimulants. So they achieved nothing. They overly medicated these kids. They altered their minds. They altered their personalities. They doped them up. They took the funny kid away because he was disruptive in class and made him a vegetable. So their personalities are pretty much robbed from them. What's that got to do with guns? A lot. When you look at, where is my other page? Here it is. Side effects. Okay, harmful effects of, now we're talking about ADHD and stimulant type drugs. The initial stimulant causes adverse effects such as depression, anxiety, agitation, insomnia, psychosis, and aggression, which the health professionals then fail to recognize as harmful drug effects. Often these drug effects are dismissed, overlooked, are viewed as the unmasking of other mental disorders. So what they're trying to say is, I got little Johnny over here, and the worst thing he's got going for him is he's having a little trouble focusing on reading, and he's cracking jokes in class a lot, maybe throwing spitballs. Other than that, he's got no signs of anything. Now they medicate little Johnny, they put him on a stimulant. All of a sudden, little Johnny's depressed, little Johnny's aggressive, he's irritable, maybe he's got headaches, becomes drowsy, blurred vision. And they're like, oh my God, little Johnny had all these things wrong with him. Thank God we caught it so soon. No, you dumbass. You just created all these problems with him. The kid was just a little witty kid that was nervous and a little hyper. You doped him up and you gave him 12 symptoms that he didn't have before that. And now you're acting like those are the symptoms. Thank God you caught him. No, you created those symptoms in this kid. He didn't possess any of those before that. Some of the other things, they say the drugs, actually these stimulant drugs, work by stifling spontaneous behavior. That's the sad thing. Stifling spontaneous behavior. You may have a child who, I don't know, maybe he would be a budding musician, an artist, a singer, a writer. Now you're stifling his spontaneous behavior, so instead of just getting a wild hair and going run in his bedroom and grabbing his acoustic guitar and playing a song, that doesn't exist anymore. He's just kind of sitting there as a vegetable. Let's see. It enforces OCD-like behavior, lining things up and doing things really, mechanical, so that the child socializes less, thinks and imagines in a more constricted fashion, and simply cannot take advantage of ordinary growth experiences because of the limits on his social and psychological capacities. Excuse me. They have not been shown to help academic performance, mental well-being, or any other measurement of psychological or physical well-being. Instead, they have been shown to stunt physical growth. So now we're creating, this will offend somebody, we're creating midgets out there that have mental disorders. You don't think that these kids got enough self-esteem problems already because you're medicating them? Now they're shorter than everybody else? The initial diagnosis of ADHD ruins the child's sense of personal responsibility and self-control. That's something that's big. So that the child no longer thinks he can control himself. So what we've done is, how we talk about young kids today not having any accountability? I mean, think about it. We complain that none of these kids hold themselves accountable for anything they do anymore. When we have 8.389 million kids between the ages of 0 and 17 on some form of medication. So roughly 8.4 million kids under the age of 17 or 17 and under are on some form of medication, and here we are complaining that they don't ever take responsibility for their own actions and they're not accountable. Well, the drugs are doing it to them. The drugs are doing it to them. These kids look at it like, it's such a it's more than a double-edged sword. When you're giving this kid medication at a young age, you're telling him, hey, little Johnny, I'm giving you this medication because they may candy coat it for the kid, but your mind is not right or something like that. You're telling the kid at a very young age, who this kid, by the way, is trying to satisfy mom and dad. So you're telling them the things that are wrong with them. So in a world where everybody is trying to be perfect, rock stars, social media superstars, and all that kind of stuff, you're telling this kid something bad about him when he's already at a fragile point in his life because he's in the growth stage. You're basically telling him you're defective. You have a defect. I'm going to give you this pill to fix that defect because this is what's wrong and this is what will make you right. So now you give this kid this pill. Now this kid is thinking, okay, well, and the parents, teachers, and doctors probably justify to these kids what's wrong with them and why they're giving them a pill. Say, Johnny, you know how you act up in class? You know how you act different, or you tell a joke, or you pick on somebody, or you pluck somebody's ear, or you act up on the bus and you can't sit down, or any number of things that might be equivalent to, I say bad behavior, but disruptive behavior, I guess is the right phrase. You know how all those things you do, Johnny? This pill is going to help you not do all that. So now Johnny's thinking, okay, so if this pill is going to fix that, then it wasn't my decision to do all that because something was wrong with me. You just identified what was wrong with me. You told me this is going to fix it. So if it doesn't fix it, it's not my fault that I keep doing that. So if I do something stupid after this, it's because the pill didn't work. And if it's not the pill's fault, then it's the fact that I have this condition in the first place. So it's a win-win for the kid that never have to take any kind of responsibility, because either the pill didn't work or the thing that's wrong with me is what caused me to do this. So you just removed any accountability from this child forever. You just help in the stages of forming this kid's mind and growing up. You just basically taught him zero accountability for your actions at that point. That's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal. So when you put all this in, and I actually drew a graph in my video. Let me see if I can do it for you guys. I'll draw it right here just to show you what I was talking about. Here we go. Got all my notes here. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. This is going to be kind of messy, so I apologize. All right. So we have, and I'm going to try to get this where you guys can see it. All right. We have, well, if I can take the lid off. Bullied kids right here. I'm writing sideways, so see if I can do this. We have fatherless kids right here. And finally, we have medicated kids right here. My point in all of this, all of the bullied kids are not bad. All of the bullied kids are not mass killers. All of the fatherless kids are not bad, and all of the fatherless kids are not killers. Again, probably some of you out there fall in these categories. All of the medicated kids are not bad, and they're not all mass killers. Where I think we're getting these, and there's proof to back me up on this, right here. That's your mass killers right there. In that bucket of people. That's your mass killers. I don't think any one of these things is a huge contributing factor, because I think the human spirit is a little stronger than just one of these things messing you up. But I feel like when you have this whole whirlwind of things coming at you as a kid, you're being bullied and jacked with. Nobody's doing anything about it. Teachers are looking the other way. Kids don't care. You're in a fatherless home. Your mom's busting her butt to try to raise you by herself and probably your siblings. She's not a father figure. It's a fact. Whatever. If it offends you, turn the video off. You're getting medicated on top of that, which is changing your mood, getting you more aggressive. You're already aggressive. You're already agitated because these two things right here are jacking with you. And now we go and mess with you even more and give you these massive headaches and depression and, you know, suicidal thoughts on top of all that. Do you honestly need to have suicidal thoughts when you're already fatherless and being bullied? Do you need to? That's like throwing gasoline on the fire. When these two are right here, the fatherless home and the being bullied already exist, why in the world are we throwing gasoline on it to make your mood even worse as a child? But yet the left wants to ban guns. This doesn't occur to them. This does not occur to the left. They don't seem to even want to talk about this. I've brought this to some of them's attention before. They don't want to talk about it. Let's ban guns. Guns are the problem. Actually, I had somebody on one of the videos, and I think I might have read it wrong, but it's very possible this is from the way the left thinks. Say that this isn't the problem, but what we could do is we could deal with these three issues and ban guns, and then we could possibly limit mass shootings. Well, I call them mass murders because they're murders. The gun doesn't have any play in that to me. It's the person. This is the mental capacity of what we're dealing with right here. This is the root cause of mass killings, not guns. But this person made it sound like we still had to ban guns, recognizing that this was an issue, but oh yeah, let's still ban guns on top of that. It's never going to be enough. It's like if you found a cure for AIDS or found a cure for cancer, they won't stop at that. You know what I mean? It's never enough. It's never enough until they have the opportunity to take every single gun. Could you imagine if you actually this will never, ever, ever, ever happen. If you actually gave in to the left and said, you know what, let's ban all guns, let's do that, what would they do? What would they do next? I mean, honestly, what in the world would they have to do to consume their time after that? You wouldn't have anything else to do because they're so consumed. That's like their number one thing. Doesn't matter what happens. Their ultimate goal is to ban guns. If you gave that in to them all of a sudden, they would not know what to do with themselves. They would have so much free time on their hands. But you guys, look, I will try to post links to my stuff. I actually, in the video that I put out there, I mention whenever I think about it, I try to put on my on-screen graphics where I'm pulling this data from so you can confirm, back it up, or whatever. But I mean, it's all right here. I can pull the websites off the bottom of the page if I need to and post all this. I'll try to take all these links and post them in the description of the video that I put out. And I forget what is, if you guys want to find the actual video, it was just uploaded earlier. It's the newest video that we've got. It's called Bullies, Fatherless Homes, and Mood-Altering Drugs Are the Problem, Not Guns. So if you want to go look at it, it's out there. Again, later on tonight, I'll go and I'll post all my supporting documentation in the description. So if you guys want to go look at it, you can. Again, this is the conversation that the left talks about having. This is the reasonable conversation that they talk about having, but they never have. They don't want to have it with me. Nobody wants to talk to me about this. Nobody. All of these people, whenever there's any kind of a mass shooting, and I use the word loosely, when some of the people look at me as a, quote, gun expert, and all these publications, NPR, the radio stations, all these liberal outlets, they start calling me wanting to get my spin and my take on the mass shooting or whatever. They're all open arms and they all want to talk to me whenever there's a mass shooting. But when I want to propose and start the conversation about something else like this, nobody wants to talk to me. They don't have time for me. They don't want to talk about it because they don't really care about fixing the problem. If fixing the problem does not include banning guns, they don't want to talk about it. But here, I'm the one wanting to have a sensible conversation. And I'm the one who takes my own time to look and see, because I do care. And I do care about kids. And I care about our public safety out there. And I care about guns. I'm tired of guns getting attacked every single time there's something out there. So I took it upon myself to do my own research. And again, no one from the left wants to talk about this. Guys, I did this on one of my other videos, and I'm going to tell you guys again. If y'all can take that video and share it, share it, share it, it needs to get in the face of some liberals and some progressive Democrats out there. They need to see this. Because just maybe, while I do think liberals do have a screw loose, I think progressive liberals, honestly, the way they think and the way their mind works, I think something is really wrong with them. I honestly feel like their brains are wired wrong. Not just different, but wrong. They can't reason. They don't use common sense. So I'm not so sure you can actually get them to change their mind, even if you throw nice, solid, hard facts at them. But just maybe there's one or two of them out there that's not full-blown stupid. And they actually can wrap their head around some facts and some actual data that's put together for you to actually look at, like the video I put at. And maybe we get that conversation started. Again, they keep talking about a conversation, but their conversation always includes banning guns. I'm talking about a conversation as well. My conversation is, what can we do to save our kids out there? I'm not just talking about the ones in schools that are getting shot at. I mean in general. This is all encompassing. This is all kids out there. There are so few school shootings. If we just focus on saving some kids at school, at a couple of school shootings that happen every now and then, yeah, one is too many. But if we just focus on that, that's not enough. We've got millions of kids out there. There's not millions of kids who have been shot, but there's millions of kids out there who are dealing with these issues right here. There's millions of kids that fall into that category. Millions of them. I'm more concerned with correcting that, because indirectly and by default, if you correct that, these mass shootings everybody wants to talk about that are happening, those things stop happening. I'm convinced of that. That's not a hope. That's not a wish. That's not a dream. That's a reality. That's a reality if you can actually get your hands around it. Now, it's not like we're going to next week, suddenly kids are going to stop being bullied. Look, I turned 50 last month. Bullying has been around since before I was in school. It's always taken place. Now, it's a little rougher these days. Social media and all that makes it a little tougher. Kids are a little bit stupider these days. So I think they do things that they normally wouldn't have done. So you're not going to fix the bullying problem overnight. I don't have the answers to how to fix a bullying problem other than letting one kid smack another one. If a kid jacks with you, smoke him, take him out. Take him out. I know that I have no problem telling my kid that. So just so you know, my kid, if I'm going to tell you something, this is how parents should work. And I think anybody in the school system that's watching this should probably appreciate this rather than run from it. I think any person worth their salt out there who cares about their child, who cares about their child's self-esteem, who cares about their child going through 12 years of public school or schooling period, should tell their kid, just like we said at the beginning of this video, if anybody messes with you, now you better be right, but if anybody messes with you, you ball your fist up, clench it, and you hit him right here as hard as you can, or in the stomach, or wherever. Keep hitting till this kid hits the ground, and then stand over him. You're going to put an end to a lot of bullying like that. Because bullying doesn't stop because you're going to get in trouble if you bully somebody. All they do, these kids, these bullies, they get more creative how they do it. Let's let our boys start being young men again and fending for themselves instead of being little sissies. And let them start resolving their own issues on their own. You'll see some of this bullying stop. That's a step in the right direction. We're not going to fix the fatherless issue overnight either. That's definitely not going to be fixed. I don't think there's any hope for the fatherless issue. Those numbers are just getting worse and worse and worse. Again, as long as we encourage the welfare system and the way the current welfare state works, we're incentivizing moms to not marry the dads. So the moms are not being incentivized at all. There's no incentive for them, none. Because the dad doesn't want to work anyway in a lot of cases. The mom, she makes more money being a baby factory. So it's a shame because these kids have no choice and they get caught up into this welfare system and they're just ruined. The poor kids are ruined, unfortunately. So I don't think that's going to get fixed at all. I don't think there's any way. I mean, we'll state the obvious here in a minute, but there's some issues out there that I don't think will allow that to get fixed. The medicating, I don't know, man. The only way we can fix that, and I do think it's possible, is if more parents read, look at these publications, watch videos like this, and realize that these mood-altering drugs are not good for these kids, and there's really no point in them taking these things. If they're not gaining anything in test scores or anything like that, then what's the point of taking them in the first place? And why would you want your kid? It's kind of a form of child abuse. If you want your kid to be so doped up that he's just a vegetable sitting there instead of having some kind of a personality. If he gets out of line, or if he's not on his medication and he gets out of line, you know what? You know what got me back in line? A good smack on the butt. There again. Teachers and schools do not discipline children anymore. And parents are afraid to also. Because now some of the kids are emboldened to the point where people are telling the kids, I'll report your parents if they spank you. Man, look. I was not afraid. Whenever I was in school, we got spanked. Paddles. You had the baseball bats that were shaved off into paddles, wooden planks that were used as paddles. I've gotten hit with every board in every possible shape you can think of. That didn't scare me. I worried about getting home and my mom finding out what I might have done at school to get paddled. That was what I worried about. Doesn't happen anymore. That just doesn't take place. The parents are afraid of it now. Let me not say that. Some parents are afraid to discipline their kid. I discipline my kid. And anybody else that I know that we're good friends with, they tighten their kids up when they need it. But guess what? We live down south. Not to dog any part of the rest of the country, but all of your liberal wasp nests and hornet's nests out there, they just don't believe in doing that. They just don't think that that's right. They don't think that you should discipline your child. I firmly disagree, and I will always firmly disagree. So we're not going to fix that problem either. I don't know how you fix these problems. I think that maybe the left has thought about what I'm looking at here as being like the root cause of the problem, and maybe they realize that A, they don't want to fix it because it will take away from their voter base, and B, maybe they just don't have the confidence to fix it, because how do you fix it? The things I've just identified, I don't have the answers to, other than, again, changing your policy on kids that get in fights in school if somebody gets bullied, and addressing your drug issues. I don't know what the magic answer is. So maybe the left has abandoned this, and the right too, because they're not talking about it either. Maybe everybody has abandoned trying to fix these things that they know are tugging at these kids and making these problems, and being a part of these problems, realizing that it's hopeless to even try to fix it. And the left thinks that, well, at least if you take a gun away, that's something we can actually quantify. We can measure that. All right, we just took 4 million guns off the street. I can measure that. But you'll never say, let's stop medicating all kids, because some kids need medication. And I'm certainly not saying that we force fathers into the homes either. Let me back that up a little bit. If a mom is in an abusive relationship, end it. It's over with. It's not good for her or the kids. So I'm certainly not suggesting that women stay in abusive or bad relationships. And on the bullying side of it, again, I don't want there to be fist fights on every single corner at the school. But at some point, these things have got to be controlled somehow, and I don't think that anyone's ever going to get a handle on them. So what happens? I mean, honestly, what happens? What do we do? Where do we take it from there? I mean, again, I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to identify the problem, because every time I get asked by one of these progressive liberals on a radio show, well, Paul, what's the real problem? How do we fix it if we don't know what the problem is? Well, I just found it. I just identified the problem for you. I just gave you all kind of numbers that you can chew up and spit out, but you're ignoring these numbers. They just ignore them. Again, the people I've brought these kind of things to, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. The people who have asked me, what's the problem, do not want to hear what the problem is. They don't want to talk about it. So anyway, guys, that's my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. I won't spend a whole lot more time on that. Again, I do have a video on that. If you guys want to see it, I just uploaded it a little bit earlier. Go take a look at it. I really spell out all the stats and put them on screen. Pretty interesting. A lot of work went into that video. I know sometimes some videos look like more work went into them. This one might not look like a lot of work went into it, but it really did. Next up, I want to show you guys something pretty cool. I just got my hands a couple weeks ago on, and it is unloaded, of course. I just got my hands on the new Colt Cobra 38 Special, if you guys can see that. Nice looking gun, too. Nice, well-made gun. See the other side of it. Very nice. Good little piece right there. This thing is cool. I did a video on it. It's not out yet. It will probably be out tomorrow. And this thing right here, it's got some pretty cool, interesting history to it. It's got, back in the day when it was originally made, I want to say 1950s when it originally came out. It came out, and a lot of this I point out in my video. But this gun was introduced because back then law enforcement, before that, didn't typically carry a backup weapon or an off-duty weapon. It was one of those kind of things where they just, when they were at work, they carried their duty weapon. When they were off work, they didn't carry anything. Well, around the 1950s is whenever they started to carry backup weapons and off-duty weapons. Well, at that time, you know, of course, technology has changed a lot now, but their guns were pretty heavy back then. And you didn't want to carry a full-size revolver that was full, the cylinder was full, because it was, excuse me, it was awfully heavy. You didn't want to carry it on your off time because you didn't have your big fat utility belt that the police officers carried, and you really couldn't put a big giant full-size revolver on your ankle because it was too big and too heavy. So Colt at that time, what they did, they designed a aluminum alloy framed Cobra. That was the original Cobra back in 1950. They introduced that. It had 6 rounds. Again, it had the aluminum frame. Its closest competitor was Smith & Wesson, had a very similar size gun out at the time, but it only had 5 rounds and it weighed about 4 ounces more. So the Colt Cobra really took off back in the 1950s. And it did well. It did some other things. There were some things, I think it went into the Air Force. Some of the Air Force guys were carrying these things because they were lighter. You know, there's some interesting history that goes behind it. But about, I want to say in the 1980s, people started really getting turned on by Plus P ammunition. Well, at the time, this gun was still made as an aluminum alloy frame. And people, not that the guns were breaking necessarily, but people lost confidence in an aluminum alloy frame pistol that was shooting a plus P more powerful ammunition. So because people lost interest in the Colt Cobra, Colt did too because they weren't selling, so they got rid of them. So that was around 1980, 1981, something like that. They made the last Colt Cobras. Just this past year, Colt came out with a steel frame. This is an all steel frame. This is not aluminum frame like the old ones. So this thing is actually plus P safe. So it's a 38 special, very cool gun, fiber optic sight on it. It's got a nice rail on top right there. Instead of having the a rear sight, it's just got a notched rail. That, let me see if you can see that. Yeah, there you go. Where's my camera at? There you go. See the rail on top? You just look down the rail, and then obviously you pick up your fiber optic sight in the front. So really cool. They reshaped the finger guard a little bit, the trigger guard. Cool thing is, this is an actual holster right here. Who makes this? I no way I'm going to DeSantis. This is actually for a J-frame, a Smith & Wesson J-frame. And you'll notice that, see if I can hold this. Keep an eye on the trigger guard, because the trigger guard on the J-frame is shaped a little bit different than this Cobra. And you'll notice the Cobra, even though it's shaped a little different, it does go in there. So you actually can use your old J-frame holster to house your Colt Cobra in. It will actually fit in it. Again, this is a J-frame holster, and the Cobra fits in it fine. I have not worn this yet. I've never been a huge fan of revolvers, so I haven't worn this. But again, it holds 6. I mean, it's only 1 or 2 less than a lot of these slimline semi-autos that are out there now. So I'm probably going to go ahead and carry this one just to see how it feels. I have not done that yet, other than just putting it on my belt. So pretty cool gun. It does have Hogue. I'm pretty sure these are Hogue grips. They do have the Colt sign on them, but they certainly look like Hogue products. Very high quality stuff. Nice little gun though, man. Fun to shoot. Easy to control. I have not shot plus P in it yet. Not that that matters. Ammo is made so good these days. Unless I'm trying to hit something, like when I was shooting 400-yard shots with a 1911, I needed plus P because I wanted my round to be a little bit flatter. But in terms of self-defense rounds, guys, my opinion is ammo is made so well today, and the ballistic capabilities of it, along with the projectile itself, how well these projectiles are made, the different types of hollow points, ballistic tips, and all that kind of stuff. To me, plus P is just not necessary. If I'm in a self-defense situation and I need to use a handgun, I don't feel like I have much to gain by plus P. A well-placed shot is going to take care of that. I mean, if you hit me right here with a plus P or a regular self-defense round, it's probably going to do roughly the same amount of damage. There's a very good chance I'm not going to continue coming at you if you hit me right here, 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 here with a bullet. So I don't see the need for the extra money on plus P. I don't see the need for the extra wear on your gun, and there's a lot more power. I just don't see that. I feel like I'd rather spend my money on getting a nice high quality self-defense round than trying to feel like, hey, I got a plus P in here. I just don't see the need for it. Those of you that do, hey, that's your choice. Again, I'm giving you my opinion. That's not certainly nothing to measure that, and there's no reasonable reason for me to think that my way is the only way. That's just my opinion and how I like to do it. Guys, I'm showing 7:48 on the clock here. What I would like to do now is I would like to spend a few minutes going through your questions here. So let's do this. I know you guys are having some conversations amongst yourself, and that's great. I'm glad you guys are. Let's see. All right, I just see. Okay, I see. Somebody needs to be banned here. I see. Bye-bye. All right. Don Johnson is no longer with us. Yeah, that's the only downside to me being in here by myself, guys, is that there is yeah, he's history. There's no one in here to manage this. There's nobody to single out the jerks like that feel the need to do stuff like that, to be little buttholes. Let's see. Trough sites. I got you, Brent. I didn't know that's what you called those sites, trough sites. Let's see here. Let me see if I okay. 33 Bravo, and I'm going to just read these questions out loud. So I hope they're good questions because I'm not proofing them first. I have two questions. It's 33 Bravo again. First, what is your thought on the Daniel defense statement? And second, what is your thought on the hostage situation in a retirement home in California that happened today? Man, you're really catching me cold on both of those. I say cold, somewhat cold. The Daniel defense statement, from what I saw in the Daniel defense statement just shortly before I came on here, from what I gathered, it was the owner of Daniel, whoever his name is, whatever Daniel. He made the statement that, well, supporting Fix the Nicks. Was there anything outside of that? I mean, did he say anything anti-gun like some of these idiots have done in the past that are not paying attention who they're talking to? Did he say something anti-gun, or was it just he's supporting the Fix the Nicks bill and trying to get, because I read where he said it had enough votes in the House and that he felt like it had enough votes in the Senate and that it was going to be going to the president's desk soon just for us to call and say that we supported it. Again, was that all that he said? Again, that was, okay, here we go. That was really as far as I read it. Yeah, I mean, look, the NRA is backing the Fix the Nicks. If you've ever been to the NRA show or to SHOT Show, SHOT Show maybe not be fair because that's NSSF. If you've ever been to the NRA show and seen how much the NRA and Daniel Defense work together, you probably understand why they're on the same team. Again, not taking up for them, but I know where their bread is buttered. And look, man, some of these guys are not as active as us in trying to figure out what's really in these bills. Maybe he really believes Fix the Nicks is a good thing. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. Maybe he's too busy counting his money or, I don't know, building guns or whatever. I'm not taking up for the guy. I don't know him and don't pretend to know him. And again, this is somewhat of a cool topic for me because I don't know a lot about it other than what I read like the first paragraph or two. I didn't have time to finish reading it. So I don't know what else he said. The hostage situation, the retirement home in California. From what I read, though, that's a veteran. Am I correct here? That was a veterans retirement home. I'm pretty sure it was a VA retirement home from what I read. Yeah, man, I don't know anything about that either. It's crazy because this California Highway Patrol guy comes to the mic to do a press release and comes to the mic and just says, I got nothing to tell y'all. That was his press release. I'm like, why'd you even bother coming? Wait and come when you got something to talk about. So that's all I know about that. I don't know what's going on. Something's probably going on while we're all in here that I'll find out here shortly. But no, man, I don't know much about that. Apologize. I didn't really have much to answer you on that because I'm kind of fresh on both of those. Let's see. Assault weapons ban. Weapons of war. Oh my God, if I hear that phrase again. Jeez. How do we convince the left that an AR-15 has never been used in a war? Ever? An AR-15 has never been used in war. They'd send it back if they got one. It's not a weapon of war. Spencer says, I do NICS checks daily and I don't understand where NICS is failing. They suck at their job and you can tell on the phone they don't want to approve sales. That's true. That's exactly true. Let's see, we got somebody else we need to get rid of. Bye. Not going to do that here, punk. Let's see. Oops, he's gone. Again, I'm reading through a lot of your comments here. Let me see. I just found a new way to hide these guys that keep running their mouths on here. Okay, anti-gun bills were signed today in Florida by the governor. What were those bills? I have not read anything on that, guys. I had a busy day today and unfortunately did not get to read up on much stuff before I came in here. So, yeah, I'm curious what bills. Everyone needs to read this article. National Review. I'll read that later. It's from Terry Compton. Terry, I'll read that here in a little bit. Here we go. Ralph McDaniel. Do you think it's right that the left used kids from Florida shooting to pass laws in Florida? No, I think that's a shame. I think that's extremely shameless. If the NRA were to line up a bunch of kids at the NRA show in Dallas next month or the month after and have these kids talking about pro-gun stuff, we would all be accused of using kids to tell our story or whatever. Yet they do this, and look, come on, guys. I know it's funny to talk about these kids eating Tide Pods and then they go and talk about all this other stuff. But let's be real here. There is a whole lot of truth to that. The week before the shooting, probably most of these kids at that school couldn't be bothered to make their beds, couldn't be bothered to find a pair of clean underwear to wear, couldn't be bothered to stop smoking dope. They couldn't be bothered to pause their video game long enough to go eat supper with their family. They couldn't be bothered to pay attention in any of their classes, including civics class and American history. Yet they have a shooting, and remarkably, all these kids are very well versed in all of these policies. And oddly enough, it's word for word of what you've been hearing the left talk about with the anti-gun movement all along. Again, these kids don't know the words of the Pledge of Allegiance, yet they know enough about American policy to be able to lecture me and you on guns? No. These kids, I feel awful for the ones that had to watch this stuff, that witnessed it, that lost friends and family. I feel terrible for them. But the ones preaching that if I don't want to support their gun control efforts, that I'm bad, those kids can kiss my ass. They're little punk ass kids that have been coached by the left. The left can lie all they want. These kids haven't said one original thought on TV, internet, wherever, the whole time. I don't care how many times you put this little feminine looking guy on TV and say he's an expert and we should listen to him. He's a talking head. He's basically a childhood hooker. He's a prostitute. The left has got this kid and some of the other ones. They have spoon-fed them all their anti-gun rhetoric, and they're using him, they're pimping him out to the media. It's as simple as that. This kid didn't know squat about guns before that. And for him to dog the president and you and I and the NRA, which they probably had to be told what NRA stands for. I'm not taking my policies from a 16-year-old. I'm not going to. If a week ago this kid was digesting Tide Pods, and now he wants to talk to me about the Constitution, and they use the stupidest words like, we just need to get rid of the Second Amendment. Okay, you clearly don't know what you're talking about now, because you don't just get rid of the Second Amendment. You have to learn the rules, son. You got to understand that. You know, you hear the joke all the time, and it's not a joke in most cases, that I was a Democrat until I matured and I became a Republican. Well, I don't like to use the parties necessarily. I was a liberal until I grew up and became a conservative. Most people do. Some of these kids are going to grow up at some point, and they're going to look back and realize how stupid they looked and how they were fooled and they were used by the left to do all this stuff. Drives me nuts. It's not right what the left is doing to these kids. I don't agree with it, and it's not cool. So, yeah, that's my 10 cents on that. Because it's 10, because it's more than 2, because I do not agree with it. Let's see. Let me try to get some more of you guys' comments. Here we go. You guys are filling me in on some stuff, so let me look at this. The outlaw rifles under 21. God, dog, that's so stupid. 3-day wait period. What does a 3-day wait period do? Honestly, guys, how many people leave a gun store and go shoot up a school? Or, I mean, seriously, think about it. How many people do that? Has anybody ever done that? Does a waiting period make your goal of shooting a school up go away? If a kid is so twisted in the mind that he's made up his mind, if he's going to that gun store to buy a gun to shoot up a school, he's going to find a way to shoot that school up. Even if you ban him from buying that gun, he will find a way to do it. God forbid, what if he blows the school up next? Waiting periods are stupid. They're just stupid. Florida bill that passed is complete crap. The Illinois and Ohio bills being proposed are straight up traitorous. I believe that. What do you think about the New York State compliant AR-15? It's a monstrosity. I've shot one, the craziest looking gun in the world. They actually are not comfortable to shoot. The way that crazy slanted pistol grip comes back on your right hand, definitely not comfortable. Okay, here we go. Terry Compton says, no gun purchases under 21 years old. Ban rate increasing devices. There we go with the echo triggers too. Mandatory waiting periods on gun purchases. Police can seize any firearm if person is accused of mentally unstable. So, are we saying no due process? So if you said accused, so if somebody's accused of being mentally unstable, would that be like you calling the FBI and saying Paul's mentally unstable and they come over here and get my guns? I mean, seriously, I'm not, I know that sounds like I'm being a smartass, but is that what, because, excuse me, again, you use the word accused. I'm just curious, is there a process involved of determining if somebody is mentally unstable, or can you just accuse somebody and then the police come and get your guns? I mean, I'm asking because I'm seriously wondering what the answer is there. Let's see. Some of those kids have been on the news before the shooting happened. Channel and student school and kids. I'm trying to pass through these pretty quick. 33 Bravo says he purchased a Mossberg 500 ATI Tactical in part because of our review. Oh, I mean, we're not trying to sell guns for people, but I'm glad you got enough information where you felt comfortable buying. I love mine. It's a great shotgun. What? You have a hearing 72 hours after to determine? Is that when you get your guns taken away, you have a hearing 72 hours? Maybe I misread. Maybe I'm piecing some of these things together. Maybe that's not it. Stacking 9mm says, when I lived in Seattle, I would get waiting periods about 4 out of 5 times, even with a concealed carry permit. Crazy. Since I moved to Vegas, I've bought about 6 new guns and no wait. Go figure. The armed realtor, James Tiberius, says, sorry I was late, Paul. It was a smack a liberal night at the local mall, and I couldn't miss that. Good for you. Here we go. My friend OBNXS1, Illinois, is following Florida down. They've got 8 to 10 bills on the table that I just covered in a video. Good God, so crazy, man. Jacob Fryangel says, I'm getting my first gun soon. I've shot before, AR-15 or 22. You can get an AR-15 and a 22 if you want. AR-15 is pretty versatile. I would probably get an AR-15 in 223 or 5.56, depending on what state you're in. You may not be able to get one much longer, so you might want to get one now. Kentucky, and we have Rand Paul. Yeah, Rand's a good guy for y'all. They take the guns first, and 72 hours later, there was a court proceeding. You have got to be kidding me. This new system in Florida is wide open for abuse. So, again, you say they take the guns first. How do they get to that point? At what point do they determine they're going to take the guns? In other words, how does it get set in motion? Does somebody complain and say that you need to have those guns taken away? Just curious what that. If you could. If you have a link or anything like that, if you could email me at paul@legallyarmedamerica.com, I would love to have that. Guys, we are near, we are there, 8:03. We are right at the end of our live stream. I didn't spend enough time going through y'all's questions. I apologize. Next week, I'm going to try to get about 20 minutes aside and go through that. I hope you guys are able to catch me next week. We're going to try to do it at the same time. 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time works for me. We get way more people on here with you guys, with me being able to have this earlier. 10:30 at night Central Standard Time, which is killing, I think, everybody. Wasn't getting a good crowd, and I think we just got a lot more time here. Plus, my kid's still asleep downstairs, or still awake downstairs. so I get to run down there and spend a little time with him before I put him to bed. So it's a win-win for everybody. I always appreciate you guys hanging out with me. It's a lot of fun. Friday nights are always good. I wish I could do this more often. I actually enjoy this. Is probably one of the things I enjoy more than anything is interacting with you guys. It's a lot of fun. Please, 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 if you see any of our videos that you feel like are relevant, that need to get the word out, please forward them on all your social media locations that you can. Subscribe to our channel if you're not subscribed already. That's always a big help to us. Fortunately, we are not, I guess, big enough to where anybody cares about us right now on YouTube. We have 90,000 subscribers. Apparently that's not big enough. I think once you reach 100,000, which we're probably a couple of weeks away from hitting that, that's when YouTube starts really putting you on our microscope. So we may start getting jacked with once we cross that 100,000 threshold in the next week or two. I hope that doesn't happen. But anyway, BO3 Beast, I appreciate you subscribing. One of the guys just said he subscribed. I appreciate that, guys. That means a lot to us. You know, hopefully you get notified when we have videos that go out. Guys, have a great weekend. You know, defend our Second Amendment. It's what we've got, and we all have to do it. Unfortunately, it seems like most of the guys that we have elected to put in office are not doing their jobs to protect our Second Amendment rights. We'll have to remind them at the voting booths, guys. So again, you guys have a good weekend. Have a safe weekend. If you go to the range, please be safe. Shoot straight. Weekend. Always enjoy hanging out with you guys, and we will see you guys next Friday.